Well, hello, everybody. My name is Peter Wehrwein, and I am managing editor of Managed Healthcare Executive. And so it's a good time to check in with Doug Chaet. He is a longtime member of the Managed Healthcare Executive Editorial Advisory Board, maybe two decades worth of experience. He's kind of seen it all in this sector of the healthcare world we're in. Spent a fair amount of time at Independence Blue Cross, and now he's president of Value Evolutions. It's a consultancy that consults with payers of various sorts and third-party administrators on value-based care. So thanks for the time this morning.
Peter, good to see you.
Yeah. So let's start with a very general question, and then we can see what comes out of that and pursue it with a little bit of back and forth. You're a value-based care expert, and the term has been around, I don't know, a decade. A lot of us, people like me, became familiar with it with the ACA and the Medicare Shared Savings Program, ACOs, which are baked into the ACA law. It's right there in the statute. And CMS and CMMI have launched a plethora of different value-based care programs, all designed to reduce costs, improve outcomes. So I'm just, at the proverbial 30,000 feet, I'm interested in sort of where you think things stand now. Are we tinkering still with sort of the versions that are out there? Do you see any sort of inflection point? Again, cliche alert, sort of a 2.0 going on. How do you see this whole field in terms of its development, and the riff off the name of your consultancy, its evolution?
It is an evolution, and it's been well. I've heard others refer to it as a journey. I don't actually like to call it that, and the reason is, there have been some really great examples of organizations who have had success in the value-based and population health management space, going back 10, 15 years. But you also have others who are just now sort of, dipping their toe in the water. We are sort of at an inflection point today. And I think in order to really evaluate what's going on, you have to look at what's driving it. And I think, honestly, there are two things that are making this even more relevant today than they have been, for a long time. The first piece is that a lot of the payers out there, a lot of the insurers are really truly putting their foot down these days, to say, hey, no new money to the provider community. And really what I mean by that is, historically, depending on who you are, hospitals, health systems, physician groups, more often than not, they've been able to enjoy inflationary adjustments to their reimbursement, ranging from 0 to even 6-7%. But most of the health plans now are no longer comfortable with that. They may help out providers from time to time if they feel like they're being reimbursed inappropriately. But by and large, the health plan's customers, largely self-insured employers, are really insisting on keeping this trend flat. And so I think in a large part that's what's driving it. And the other piece is just CMS. CMMI, in my opinion, has become a legitimate enabler for those provider organizations who are serious about improving both financial outcomes and quality outcomes, as well as things like, patient member satisfaction. So there was a time, maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even, when if you looked at the portfolio of options that you could potentially participate in through CMS, it was all over the place. There was a pilot program, let's say, for hips and knees, and then that evolved. Obviously, cancer-based programs, those have evolved. And then, as you mentioned earlier, we had, the early MSSPs and pioneer ACOs, and then, it seemed like every other year or so there was a new model or there was a new rule. And what's always been interesting to me about what CMS is doing is that they basically say, okay, here's the program, and you can either participate or not. And we have a chance, we have an opportunity to actually approve or reject your application. But it's basically a non-negotiable program. Whereas if you're a provider and you're working with a large insurer, things tend to be negotiable because there are a lot of variables that come into play. Are we going to include this product or that product? Is it going to be specific to MA? Are we going to throw in on the commercial business? Are we including our self-funded customers? Can the self-funded customers say yes or no as to whether or not they want to participate in the value-based programs, so forth and so on. Sometimes the value, the monetary value of these commercial programs can change depending on what a provider is willing to accept or not accept, with respect to their fee-for-service reimbursement. So again, a very different model from CMS, who basically says, okay, here's the program for this year. And I think what's happened probably over the last 3 years is that CMS has really kind of turned on a dime. So it used to be they were, throwing everything against the wall to see what would stick. Now they have really, I think, made a concerted effort to narrow those lanes. And I think, they're finally at this inflection point, as I said before, where if you're a provider who's going to be sitting on the sidelines and really is just dipping their toe with CMS because they want to see what might happen, or try it out for a year or try it out for 2 years, CMS is no longer really, in my opinion, catering to those sorts of provider organizations. So they're really trying to develop programs for those who have said, hey, we've had 5-10 years to learn this, and now we're all in. So I think that's been probably the biggest change that I've observed, over the past couple of years.
The visit for people like me, the most visible part of the value-based trend is the CMS are the CMS programs and the CMMI programs. But you referenced that, commercial payers and self-funded plans are also using these models, and just by the very nature, because they are private arrangements, I think it's a less visible part of the trend.
Right.
But you have probably more visibility into that than somebody like me. So are the models that the commercial payers using, are they just sort of picking up what CMMI and CMS have put out there and adapting it? Would it have the same look and feel, shared savings, quality metrics, some reconciliation at the and financial benchmarks? The ingredients, the basic ingredients in the value-based care pie. I'm just wondering does it look the same on the commercials, the private side?
Yeah, I actually think the designs are directionally similar, But when you get into the weeds, there are a lot of differences. So CMS, for example, most of their programs look at CMS trends, and they look at trends for particular regions, and they will establish targets based on those numbers. And it makes sense for them to do it that way, because really what they're trying to do is yield savings. So on the commercial side, it really is all over the place. There are some models that do follow that same path, but there are a lot of other models that actually look at establishing baselines that are specific to a provider's own historical performance. And I actually like those models. I think there's a lot of merit in that. And the reason I like it, and it's not for everyone, and it's not for every market, but if you're a provider, I think what's sort of uniquely fair about those designs is that you're really truly getting rewarded for your own improvement, right? So if you have a quality baseline that looks at these 4 or 5 metrics, or if you have a financial baseline that's based on sort of a cumulative experience over the past, say, 2 or 3 years, you know what the starting point is, and you know that you're trying to beat that. Whereas, the targets that are being used in some of the other programs, the ones where you have targets being set for a region or even national, you tend to sort of chase your tail a little bit from time to time, because you don't have control over what everybody else is doing. You only really have control over what you're doing. And there could be a situation where you actually have a banner year as a provider, and you improve quality by 15%, you improve cost by 7%, but you don't actually get any bonus money because the target moved, because everybody else did better as well. So I'm not suggesting that one is better than the other. I think it really depends on the insurance product. I think it also depends on the marketplace and what that region looks like. But I think that is one big difference between what you might see on the commercial side versus what you would typically see coming out of CMMI.